Happy Tuesday, traders. This is Tanner with Charting Options. As of this video, it is January 4th, the afternoon of. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching. I am here to recap today's day trade videos. I am here to recap today's day trade ideas in a video, hopefully a brief video. We'll talk about the three different ideas we had coming into the session: Apple, CHWY, and Square. Formerly known as Square, now known as Block actually, but they maintain the ticker, so SQ. All three of which triggered to the downside. Obviously, it was a really tough day today for anything that is considered higher beta or higher growth. Typically, those stocks that fundamentally aren't as sound yet as other companies in the market, specifically referring to the tech sector. So if a lot of companies are evaluated right now based off of forward earnings, they're pretty much getting crushed. And we saw that really with CHWY and Square, particularly in these day trade ideas. And part of, I guess, just to preface, well, I'll have a few prefaces, but initially, I know I've been talking recently about having two individual stocks and then one ETF. I didn't like the way the market was gapping up this morning. It made it really hard for me to determine levels. And I also didn't like the choppiness that we've seen definitely yesterday and really at the end of the last week, which obviously ended the month of December. It ended the final quarter of 2021 and it ended the year of 2021. So we've had a lot going on under the hood right now, as rotation is obviously very apparent as institutions find out where they want to be for this coming quarter and beyond. So with that, I chose to refrain from including an ETF today. So for those wondering, that is why. But with that being said, we did have three trigger to the downside. We had three potential good trades. CHWY and Square provided the potential for really good trades had you caught a good bit of the move. So we'll just essentially talk about the rationale of the levels coming into the day, so the triggers to the upside and the downside, and then just how price developed. Before I get too into this, let me create some session breaks here. So this is these are vertical lines that are going to delineate each session or the price action for each session. So you guys can see all of today's price action. So you can see here's a vertical line over behind my cursor right here, right here, right here. So this is all of yesterday's action. This is all of today's action. And obviously this is the I have the 5-minute on right now. I'm going to sneeze, so excuse me. That was the 5-minute. Now I have the correct 10-minute on, what we were looking for or what these levels are actually built on. So the candle confirmations are set and the levels are set based off of 10-minute time frame. That does not mean that I trade on the 10-minute upon confirmation of a move to the downside or the upside. On Monday, Tuesday, early Wednesday, I'm usually trading on the 5-minute. Beyond Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, and especially on Friday, I'm trading down to the 3-minute. All dependent upon how close we get or the proximity to expiration. So we're trading. The idea here is for these to be day trades or even scalps. They could be really quick trades. So we're using this week's expiration. If we're trading an ETF, maybe we're using the intra-week expiration, so the Wednesday expiration. Or if we're trading on Monday and we're really trading lottos, we're using Monday's expiration. That is nice about trading ETFs, the flexibility of that. And that is why I strive to include at least the SPY, the Qs, sometimes IWM into this list. But with that being said, please be mindful of that. I believe, in my experience, the 10-minute is a good time frame to weed out any potential false moves, or at least it heightens the probabilities that the move that we're calling for is likelier to continue going that way based off of our levels, as opposed to the 5-minute, which introduces the higher probability or the higher chance that the moves triggered are false. So with that being said, you can see our trigger to the upside here for Apple was just yesterday's high. Right here is 182.88. That was a new all-time high. So if price wanted to go ahead and get above there, we were going to put on 183 calls and ride it to wherever it wanted to ride to. I have some fib extension targets set overhead. Obviously, just to mention these dashed black lines with this price on the side, all of that represents potential targets to the upside and the downside. I try to include at least three to both sides. And obviously, green line is our trigger to clear, red line is our trigger to get, or I guess our level to get below. And obviously, they have price labels for each as well. So I try and make this as easily digested as possible early and potentially throughout the trade as well if you do use these levels. So obviously price came up early this morning. The very first 10-minute candle wicked at and did create a new all-time high, but did not give us a 10-minute candle close below. Traded sideways, tried again, put in a lower high, traded sideways, tried again, put in another lower high, and then finally flushed with the market and gave us this 10-minute close below our 188, or excuse me, our 181.08 level. That was this intraday low from yesterday, and it acted as a pivot yesterday. And if you look left on the 28th of December, it acted as resistance. So you can see here early yesterday, price came up, gave us a 10-minute close above, lost it, traded sideways, tested it a bunch, then finally got back above, traded sideways, retested it right here, this intraday low, 181.08, and then bounced. So that's clearly a big level. And if you pop on AVWAP, which I use TrendSpider to do, you can see that it was pretty much AVWAP from this swing low. So that was the rationale with the trigger there, or with that level there. And then obviously you can see price from that point. You had to be pretty quick. You definitely had to have either been fully actively monitoring Apple, or as soon as you saw in Discord Apple triggered to the downside, you pop on a chart. There was no retest. It pretty much flushed pretty hard from there. Even if you pop on the 5-minute, that next 5-minute candle was pretty much all of that move. So not the easiest of trades. It would have pretty much been a scalp, and you would have had to have entered pretty much right away. But you can see price carved through our 180.50 target, carved through our 180 target, and then landed directly at 179.50. So I have not marked these charts up with you yet, guys. I'm marking them up with you if needed. So you can see that our levels were pretty solid for the most part. At that point, price tried to bounce, traded sideways, and look where it found support. So we have this dotted line that I included this morning, which I was unsure if it was fully going to act as trendline support, so I didn't want to make it as prominent. But clearly it did, because you can see price hugged it, pushed off of it. End of the day, it pulled back and tested it again. That comes from this December 31st low, and it originates all the way back at the December 20th low. So that's a big spot for Apple to hold. If Apple gets below there, likely it's going to flush lower and hit our targets, a few of our targets to the downside. So that'll be something to monitor tomorrow. This actually has now, where it closed, it has a high likelihood that it gaps down and gaps below this, to which it could gap and run below, or it could gap below and get back above, and that would be a bullish signal if it can quickly reclaim this on the 1 or 3 minute at tomorrow's open. But all that to say, big trend line here, and nothing more than a pullback and a pretty good attempt at what would have been a scalp. So please be mindful of that. When you see the percentage gain or the potential percentage gain, please remember that that is an imperfect measure, and it is just a measure to show you all of the possibility of what could have been traded had you traded it perfectly. No one's trading these perfectly, so it's just the price of trigger to the high of the day, and hopefully you're just catching some of that move in between. We're not striving to catch it all, though. I mean, it's always great to strive for perfection, but please be realistic and please understand that there's a lot that goes into the dynamic of trading these, and it would be unfair for you to expect a complete or to completely capture all of that move. Okay, so here CHWY. Ooh, what a flush from CHWY. CHWY provided an amazing trade, about as good as it gets. It ripped through all of our targets in the very first 10-minute candle. Price triggered all the way down here. So price had already run $1.50 before actually triggering. That in itself would have been a really good trade, but obviously that was just a huge igniting bar to the downside. From there, price tried to bounce and get above 56.50 and was denied, and then flushed really hard to the lows of the day, which made it all the way down to 52.87. It put the 56 puts well in the money at one point. They went from a $1.06 it triggered to $5.50. So that's $1.06 here. Now, had you entered up here, they were probably like 20 or 30 cents, which was probably maybe close to a I don't know. I'd have to look. I don't want to speak out of line, but over 1,000% return had you bought puts it open. But anyways, regardless, just to give you the rationale with the level below, we just simply used yesterday's low. And if you look left, that was an area of support on the 29th of December. And then if you look back here, it acted as a pivot to the upside on the 23rd of December on a big gap up. So we knew if price was going to get below this, we had a good idea that it was going to want to come fill this gap. Hopefully you guys can see this gap. I'll make it, let's see, I'm not as handy yet with trading view, but you can see there was this huge gap here to fill. Price easily filled that and then went on to push even lower and tried to catch itself here at 54 support, which was on the 22nd, but was unable to do so until it hit, as I mentioned, just below 53. So this is just a really, I mean, I hate saying it, but for the most part, an easy trade. There never gave you a reason to bail out of this position. Obviously, you're scaling out as the trade lives because that is prudent to do and you're raising your stops. But here on the 10-minute, we didn't have a green candle for until almost 2 hours into the session. And if you make it the 5-minute, there was never really a big bounce. These are just a bunch of bear flags. So you can see this is a downtrend. We have a bear flag here that breaks down. We had a bit of a flag here, though it's less prominent, less time that broke down. And then finally we had an attempt at a reversal, and you could have been fully out of your position here at this point. But even this rejection here at 54 to try and get back above, that was another signal. So that's a signal to either maintain your existing position, or you could have tried to put another on if you're following CHWY really close today. But all in all, this provided the potential for a really good trade as a lot of high growth stocks pulled back. Same can be said for Square. Square coming into the session, let me put the 10-minute back on so we can see this full picture, was working through this huge triangle dating back to the December 16th high. Price had created resistance here, so we had a rejection point on the 27th, we had a rejection point on the 30th, and then it was based off of a series of higher lows from the December 20th low. We had support on the 29th, and then yesterday we used it as support. So essentially our rationale behind our downside trigger was getting below yesterday's low, which would have been confluent with a loss of this triangle. So that would be a breakdown. And then obviously you can see price did that, and it ripped through our targets pretty quick. So we had a quick gap down and quick fade all the way to the trend line. Or the bottom of the triangle, however you want to iterate that. Right at 10 o'clock, price triggered below and then gave us a really good flush for the next hour all the way to the low of the day, which was 151.02. I mean, if you put on the 155 puts at trigger, so not until roughly 158, that's $1 below our trigger, and rode it all the way to the bottom, you had pretty much the potential for a 200% gain. Obviously, as I mentioned with the other stocks, we are prudently scaling out. We are prudently moving up our stop. But because today is Tuesday, we can be a bit more loose with price because we don't have to worry about theta decay as much as we would later in the week. And as in the same breath I mentioned with CHWY, if you have the 10-minute chart on, we didn't have a green 10-minute candle all the way until this bounce. We got this really big wick right at 151, and that's where we saw a bit of a dead cat fade, a higher low that pushed at the end of the day. And a lot of these stocks did recover here at the end of the day. But if we're putting on the 5-minute, you can see we really never gave an issue to worry either. We have a 5-minute bear flag here in a flag in a downtrend, which is considered a bear flag that broke down. You have another attempt at a bounce here that didn't go anywhere. Obviously, it didn't form as prominent of a bear flag, but broke down. And then even here you can see that this is price was rejected at part of that trend line, created a higher high here but was rejected and then faded. So there's a lot of things you can do, and if you're popping on the 3-minute, you can see these even better. These bear flags become even more prominent than as opposed to the 5 and certainly the 10. So there's a lot of ways to look at these and a lot of different ways to trade them. You don't have to necessarily trade them based off of the alerts. You can trade them based off of levels, but all in all, another potential for a good trade today is the market obliged. It's always nice when the market moves in one direction for us, at least one sector or one group of stocks that move in one direction. And today that was down. We always enjoy that even more because as the old adage goes, price takes the stairs up, but it takes the elevators down. So once people want to get out, and once the algos hit sell, and the market makers start selling, it moves quick to the downside. So all in all, I hope you made today as best as you could. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Have a great night or day whenever you're watching.